And blessed to be with you here. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Want to thank everybody who contributed to Miller's mission. It was a great event, and you really were the star. And you continue to help us, help the Boise Rescue Mission. This Wednesday, they're going to have a big banquet. They had one on Saturday in Nampa. And we couldn't do it without you. Well, you did it. And we, again, thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. You know, people say that conservatives don't give. People say that conservatives don't have hearts, but you certainly showed up big. And we thank you. Over 2,000 turkeys, over $15,000 raised. And do want to thank everybody. I want to thank Ray Amaya for, once again, being the captain of the ship here, keeping everything rolling. And we appreciate his great work, and it was so heartwarming to see everybody at the Walmart Garrity in Franklin. I want to thank Team Mazda Subaru, Camping World, the Boise Rescue Mission, and you. It was a great, great time. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. If you were watching or listening to Fox News yesterday, you heard President Trump's interview with Chris Wallace. It was so captivating. It was so shocking. I thought we would start the day off with listening to this interview and getting your thoughts on it. A pretty hard-hitting interview. Let's take a listen to it now. And again, when you hear Fox News Sunday on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
President, thank you for talking with us.
Thank you, Chris, very much.
Let's start with the state of Donald Trump.
Right.
There are a number of stories out there that you're angry about the midterms, about your treatment in the media, about the way you were treated when you were in Paris. One story even said that you were in a, quote, cocoon of bitterness and resentment.
Right.
We'll get into all the details later, but how dark is your mood?
It's very light. It's fake news. It's disgusting fake news. I read a front page story in the Washington Post. They never even call me. Nobody ever calls me. You know, they hear, I don't even think they have sources. I think they just make it up like it's fiction. And I will tell you, I'm extremely upbeat. The White House is running like a well-oiled machine. It's doing really well. I have great people. I will make some changes, but not very many. I'm very happy with my cabinet, other than, you know, a couple of exceptions, and even there I'm not unhappy. And I will tell you that it's so wrong. The reporting about me is so wrong. I'm loving what I'm doing. I did well in France. I did have a problem where I wasn't able to go to a cemetery because the Secret Service would not let me do it.
We'll get into all of this, sir.
No, but I'm just telling you, the Secret Service would not let me do it, and they made it a big deal.
You've said a lot of things there. Let's try to unpack them. There's a lot of talk about staff changes. Your deputy national security advisor was moved out after your wife did something I've never heard of a first lady doing before, publicly calling for her removal. Are you comfortable with the way that went down, where it kind of looked like your wife was firing one of your advisors?
Well, I didn't know the advisor well, really, and I know they had a lot of problems. My wife did a great job in Africa, and she was not treated properly by the press. She really worked so hard. They came to me. They wanted to go a little bit public because that's the way they felt, and I thought it was fine. I met with Mira 2 days ago, and we're going to move her around. She was with me for a long time, although I don't know her. She's really somebody I don't know very well. But we're going to move her around because she's got certain talents. But frankly, she is not, she'll never be put in the United Nations, let me put it that way.
Meaning she's not too diplomatic.
She's not too diplomatic, but she's talented.
Are you happy with Kirstjen Nielsen at DHS?
Well, I like her a lot. I respect her a lot. She's very smart. I want her to get much tougher, and we'll see what happens there. But I want to be extremely tough.
What are the chances she'll be DHS secretary?
Well, there's a chance, but there's a chance everybody. I mean, that's what happens in government. You leave, you make a name, you go. The people that have left have done very well. The people that have left have done very well from my White House. I like her very much. I respect her very much. I'd like her to be much tougher on the border, much tougher, period.
Back in July, you said that Chief of Staff John Kelly will be here through 2020. Can you still say that?
I wouldn't. Look, we get along well. There are certain things I love what he does, and there are certain things that I don't like that he does that aren't his strength. It's not that he doesn't do, he works so hard. He's doing an excellent job in many ways. There are a couple of things where it's just not his strength. It's not his fault. It's not his strength.
Such as?
But I haven't even thought about John in terms of this. But John at some point is going to want to move on. John will move on.
So 2020 is no longer written in stone.
It could happen. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be. But let's see what happens. I have not. Look, I have 3 or 4 or 5 positions that I'm thinking about. Of that, maybe it's going to end up being 2, maybe. But I need flexibility.
You have already made at least one big change, naming Matt Whitaker as your acting Attorney General. He has a long record of speaking out against the special counsel and his probe.
I could see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces the budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
The truth is, there was no collusion with the Russians in the Trump campaign.
Did you know, before you appointed him, that he had that record and was so critical of Robert Mueller?
I did not know that. I did not know he took views on the Mueller investigation as such.
And when you found that out?
I don't think it had any effect. If you look at those statements they really can be viewed either way. But I don't think it will have any
He says
impact.
there's no collusion.
Chris, I'll tell you what.
He says you can starve the investigation.
What do you do when a person's right? There is no collusion. He happened to be right. I mean, he said it. So if he said there is collusion, I'm supposed to be taking somebody that says there is, because then I wouldn't take him for 2 reasons. But the number one reason is the fact that he would have been wrong. If he said that there's no collusion, he's right.
He is going to have to make, or could potentially make, a lot of big calls in the Mueller investigation. If Mueller decides that he wants to subpoena you, the Attorney General, Whitaker, can block that. If Mueller issues a final report, he can decide how much goes to Congress or doesn't go to Congress. You tweeted this week about...
And there we have the first part of the interview with Chris Wallace, and it gets contentious. I saw this interview a few times, and then I re-listened to it last night on KIDO Talk Radio. Remember, Fox News Radio is on at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoons, and hearing it is just so much more powerful than seeing it. So the interview is going okay, but it gets a little deeper, and my favorite part of it, and I don't want to ruin too much of it, is when Donald Trump starts talking about Chris Wallace's dad, the legendary journalist Mike Wallace, and we're going to get to that. Remember, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Chris Wallace interviewing President Trump.
Quote, Bob Mueller and his gang of Democrat thugs.
Right.
If Whitaker decides in any way to limit or curtail the Mueller investigation, are you okay with that?
Look, it's going to be up to him. I think he's very well aware politically. I think he's astute politically. He's a very smart person, a very respected person. He's going to do what's right. I really believe he's going to do what's right.
But you won't overrule him if he decides to curtail.
I would not get involved. And all these people that say, I'm going to end the investigation, they've been saying that now for, how long has this witch hunt gone on? It's gone on for what?
Since May of 17.
Okay, but how long have I been looked at? You know when I've been looked at?
Since July of 2016.
From the day I announced, I was looked at as a candidate with nothing, no proof, with phony people like McCabe and Strzok and his lover. You had Lisa Page, his lover. These people were looking at me. They wanted an insurance policy just in case I won or Hillary lost. And this was the insurance policy. It's a scam. There was no collusion whatsoever. And the whole thing is a scam.
Your team is preparing written answers to questions about...
No, not my team. I'm preparing written answers. I'm the one that does the answer. Yes. Are they writing them out?
Yes.
Yeah. They're writing what I tell them to write.
Are they going to be submitted?
At some point very soon, yes. I've completed them.
So you are submitting...
And it wasn't a big deal. By the way, it wasn't a big deal. The questions were asked and answered. It wasn't a big deal. They make it like I had meetings for many, many hours. I got the questions. I responded. We wrote them out. I read them once. I read them a second time. We made some changes. That's it. They're very simple. You know why? I did nothing wrong.
Here's my question, though. you are submitting written answers to the special counsel about the issue of collusion, but not on obstruction of justice.
Well, there was no obstruction of justice.
Let me, if I may, sir, just
and I think they probably agree with that. And all you have to do is look at Article 2.
Is that your final position, that there's going to be no sit-down interview and nothing, written or in person, on obstruction?
I would say probably. Probably. I mean, I can change my mind, but probably. I think we've wasted enough time on this witch hunt, and the answer is probably. We're finished.
What are the odds? 1 in 100?
I don't do odds. I gave very detailed
casinos, sir.
You're right, and very successfully, actually. We gave very, very complete answers to a lot of questions that I shouldn't have even been asked. And I think that should solve the problem. I hope it solves the problem. If it doesn't, I'll be told and we'll make a decision at that time. But probably this is the end.
Turkish President Erdogan says that he has shared a tape with the U.S. and other countries that is of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Have you, one, either heard the tape yourself or been briefed on it? And if so, to your mind, what does it show?
We have the tape. I don't want to hear the tape. No reason for me to hear the tape.
Why don't you want to hear it, sir?
Because it's a suffering tape. It's a terrible tape. I've been fully briefed on it. There's no reason for me to hear it. In fact, I said to the people, should I? They said, you really shouldn't. There's no reason. I know everything that went on the tape without having to.
And what happened?
It was very violent, very vicious, and terrible.
A month ago, you said you had spoken with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and that he had told you directly that he had no knowledge of this.
That's right. And still says that.
But we now know that some of the people closest to him, some of his closest advisors were part of this. Question: did MBS lie to you, sir?
I don't know. Who can really know? But I can say this: he's got many people now that say he had no knowledge.
What if the Crown Prince, speaking to you, the President of the United States, directly lied to you about
it? He told me that he had nothing to do with it. He told me that, I would say, maybe 5 times at different points.
So what if he's lying?
As recently as a few days ago.
And remember, this is our friend Chris Wallace of Fox News. By the way, if you're just tuning in, the president gave an exclusive interview to Fox News Sunday yesterday. If you missed it, we're going over it. We'll get your reaction, 580-5436-580-KIDO. And again, thank you very much for your incredible contributions to Miller's Mission, your online donations, your turkey vouchers. You made a difference, and people will have a warm, safe home because of you. Much more coming up. If you want to talk about the president, we would love to hear from you. Or you want to talk a little bit about Miller's Mission. We are rolling. We are on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. 622 on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Here's more of Chris Wallace with Donald Trump, President Trump. It really gets, contentious. And we like contentious here in the mornings. We like to get a little contentious, a little fired up. So let's take a listen.
Do you just live with it because you need him?
Well, will anybody really know? All right, will anybody really know? But he did have certainly people that were reasonably close to him that were probably involved. You saw we put on very heavy sanctions, massive sanctions on a large group of people from Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, we do have an ally, and I want to stick with an ally that in many ways has been very good.
So if Congress were to move to either try to cut off any U.S. involvement in the war in Yemen or to block any arms sales, you won't go along with it?
Well, I want to see Yemen end, but it takes 2 to tango. Iran has to end it also. And Iran is a different country than it was when I took over. It's far weakened because of what I did with the so-called Iran deal, Iran nuclear deal, which was one of the great rip-offs of all time. But I want Saudi to stop, but I want Iran to stop also.
When Democrats flipped the House back in 2006 and picked up 30 seats, President Bush 43 had a news conference the next day and said, we had a thumping. Last week, in this election, the House picked up, so far, it's 36 seats. It may be on the way to 40 seats. And your reaction was that it was almost a complete victory.
I won the Senate. You don't mention that.
Well,
excuse me. I won the Senate.
I understand
I think they said 88 years.
But this was this is a historically big defeat in the House. You lost 36, maybe 40 seats. Some would argue that it was a thumping. And I want to talk about some of the ways in which you lost. You lost in traditionally Republican suburbs, not only around liberal cities like Philadelphia and D.C., but also red state big cities like Houston and Oklahoma City. You lost among suburban women. You lost among independents. And in 3 key states that I think you remember pretty well, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, you lost both the governor's seats and the Senate seats.
Are you ready? I won the Senate. And that's historic, too. Because if you look at presidents in the White House, it's almost never happened where you won a seat. We now have 53 as opposed to 51. And we have 53 great senators in the U.S. Senate. We won. That's a tremendous victory. Nobody talks about that. That's a far greater victory than it is for the other side. Number 2, I wasn't on the ballot.
Wait, you kept saying.
I said, look at me. I said, look at me.
Pretend I'm on the
ballot.
ballot.
But I have people, and you see the polls, how good they are. I have people that won't vote unless I'm on the ballot, okay? And I wasn't on the ballot. And almost everybody that I won, I think they said it was 10 out of 11, and I went against President Obama and Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama in a great state called Georgia for the governor, and it was all stacked against Brian. And I was the one that went for Brian, and Brian won. Look at Florida. I went down to Florida. Rick Scott won, and he won by a lot. I don't know what happened to all those votes that disappeared at the very end. And if I didn't put a spotlight on that election before it got down to the 12,500 votes, he would have lost that election, okay? In my opinion. He would have lost. They were taking that election away from him. Rick.
There we have it. More of Donald Trump coming up next. Our time is 6:26 on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave.
This is Channel 7's Eric Everett.
Oh, thank you, Larry. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The last couple minutes of President Trump. Actually, the last minute of President Trump versus Chris Wallace.
Scott won Florida. He'd have to say, excuse me, a man named Ron DeSantis is now your governor, your new governor of Florida. A wonderful man named DeWine is your governor of the great state of Ohio. Remember what they used to say before my election? You cannot win unless you win Ohio. I won Ohio. We had a tremendous set of victories. You look at the victories.
But if you can't carry, and you certainly didn't carry it 2 weeks ago, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, you're not going to get reelected.
I didn't run. I wasn't running. My name wasn't on the ballot. There are many people that think I don't like Congress, that like me a lot. I get it all the time. Sir, we'll never vote unless you're on the ballot. I get it all the time. People are saying, sir, I will never vote unless you're on the ballot. I say, no, go and vote. Well, what do you mean? As much as I try and convince people to go vote, I'm not on the ballot.
And there we have it. That is President Trump with Chris Wallace. We'll have more. We'll have part 2 of that interview coming up. Kevin Miller in the morning here. To me, it was okay. And it must have been the second part of the interview where it got very contentious. But here you have President Trump doing his thing, making sure. And by the way, we'll post this later on KIDOTalkRadio.com, where he and Chris Wallace go at it again and again and again and again. And I have to tell you, it is something that you don't want to miss when we're examining this. The president giving Fox News a lot of access, and we appreciate that. I think the president is setting himself up for a great comeback. A great comeback here coming up in 2020. He's going to be on the ballot. He's going to be rolling, and we can't wait to hear what he has to say. Coming up, your phone calls, and I see our little friend Max. We'll talk to him as well. Don't be a stranger. Join Max in the conversation. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
We wanted to interrupt a little bit of our break to first thank everybody who helped us along this journey as we worked incredibly hard, not only to win an election, quite frankly, but to build and strengthen a movement for everyday people again here in the state of Florida.
There we have it. Gillum conceding the recount in Florida. It's over. Georgia has been won. Florida has been won. But you won't hear that from our friends in the media. Even Bill Nelson, a senator from Florida, he lost his bid for re-election.
I was not victorious in this race.
Exactly. And it's about time that these folks actually started classing up, if you will. Coming up, we'll hear from Max in Garden City. More of the interview with President Trump and Chris Wallace. Remember, Fox News on 107.5 FM, your FM talk station, and 580 AM, Idaho's first radio station. We're getting ready to celebrate 90 years in the Treasure Valley. And unlike other radio outlets around the country, we're getting ready to celebrate the 100th anniversary of radio. Did you know that KIDO Talk Radio was started by high school students at Boise High? Coming up in our 90th year, we'll dedicate ourselves to honoring the history of our predecessors. Before we get to Max, we go to Simon Owen, live from London, talk a little bit about Brexit and how it impacts, our foreign policy and our domestic policy here in America. Simon, good morning.
Hey, Kevin, good morning.
So I thought it was a done deal. Europe or Britain is out of Brexit, and it's no big deal, but there's trouble with May.
Well, it's not done yet, and it's definitely a big deal, but this is now 2.5 years on from the Brexit referendum, the vote here where the British public decided to quit the European Union. It was never going to be quick. This is a 45-year relationship that needs to be unpicked and untied, and there's a lot of knots to untangle. But what we've seen in recent days is Theresa May, the Prime Minister here, revealing her plan for the divorce. They've been negotiating this in some fairly fraught circumstances for many months, and now May is out with her plan. And this came out a few days ago now, and since then she's been owning it, really. She's been on TV shows. She's hosted her own radio phone-in. She's taken hours and hours of questions from lawmakers in Parliament, and she's been speaking to business executives in the past couple of hours here. But at the same time, she is facing a potential challenge to her leadership over this, because those in favour of Britain's EU departure, or Brexiteers as they've come to be known here, they don't believe, or many of them don't believe, that May's policy and approach goes far enough. They think that the ties left to the European Union after Brexit next year will still be too significant, and so they are talking about a potential leadership challenge. So a huge moment in British history, this, with Brexit coming up next March. It's a big change for the United Kingdom, and at the same time there's a potential shift going on with the Prime Minister's own Conservative Party looking to potentially oust her. We don't know if it'll happen, but in the next few days there could be word of a leadership challenge.
What impact will that have on any of us here in the United States?
Well, I mean, if Theresa May is kicked out, then that sort of pushes Britain towards yet more instability as this big change next year comes closer. And the concern there would be that whether this starts to have an impact on the money markets. And it's not guaranteed that it would. It may be that somebody else can get a plan together. It may be that Theresa May faces this challenge and wins it. She may well be fine and carry on and stick to this plan that she has put out there. I think on an international level, it's not so much whether Theresa May's deal is right or whether it should be more of a cut from Europe when Brexit happens. It's whether a deal is done at all. And there are some in May's party who say that you shouldn't do a deal. This has gone on far enough. Just walk away from the EU. And that would undeniably be a pretty major rupture in some very long-standing ties, whether it's on security or trade or pharmaceuticals. And business leaders, a number of business leaders have warned that they don't like the idea of crashing out without a deal. So if that was to happen, if May was to go and no deal was secured in the next 4 or 5 months, then that's where it might start to hit markets a bit more. I mean, on a broader level, though, in terms of what it might mean for the US and the UK, it could really mean closer relations, I suspect. You know, it's been a troubled marriage. One EU minister was saying this morning that this is the end of a difficult marriage between Britain and the European Union. And the relationship with the United States and the UK has always been called the special relationship. And Britain is going to be looking for friends in the years to come. And Prime Minister May and President Trump, we know, have already spoken about doing a trade deal. And so it may be whether it's on trade or defense or other areas that actually it leads to the United Kingdom and the United States potentially working closer together. But the bottom line is this is uncharted territory, and we don't know what might happen next.
Simon, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir, for the update.
Thanks, Kevin.
A great friend, Simon Owen. Max in Garden City, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. Successful drive, a lot of turkeys. Good job.
It was great to see you last week.
It was good to see you, too. It's been quite a while. Do I always have to get my oil changed to see you?
It's the price we pay for the ones we love.
That's so true. You know, about this Chris Wallace interview, first of all, he's not his daddy. Yes, nepotism gets him a job, gets him to work, but he's not his daddy. Wouldn't you think that if they shook the bushes enough, they could find a better qualified interviewer?
Well, I like Tony Snow, God rest his soul, when he was there, and, you know, I don't know. I think Chris Wallace seems to be auditioning for the I think Chris Wallace is going out of his way to be extremely fair, and that's the problem, the challenge with the Fox people, unlike Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson, who just are who they are. It's almost like the Fox people want to ask the extra tough questions just to say, hey, we're part of the press.
Well, it's not so much the questions. I think the tougher the better. It's the attitude. It's talking over the president. It's not allowing him to finish a sentence or an idea. Do you remember an old expression, if you don't respect the man, at least respect the office?
Yes.
He doesn't seem to respect the office or the man.
Well, you could say that for every member of the press corps there, Jim Acosta and others.
Well, yeah,
yes.
but like we don't even go into Acosta, turn the camera off on him. But don't you think that somewhere in the staff they could find somebody who doesn't have an axe to grind? You, for example, I think if you interviewed the president, it would be a far more civil exchange. You'd let him finish his ideas. You wouldn't cut him off. There's got to be somebody else up there. Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe we could do that one day, Max.
Well, if we can ever get the president to Idaho and everybody's working on it, I still say you need to have a birthday party for him. He'd show up for that.
Max, thank you for the call.
All right, buddy.
All right. Let's get back to the interview that we were referencing. If you're just tuning in, President Trump and Chris Wallace, here is where it starts heating up.
Like me a lot. I get it all the time. Sir, we'll never vote unless you're on the ballot. I get it all the time. People are saying, sir, I will never vote unless you're on the ballot. I say, no, go and vote. Well, what do you mean? As much as I try and convince people to go vote, I'm not on the ballot.
Up next, much more from our exclusive interview with President Trump. We have a spirited exchange about a...
And we've been talking about that, and let's get right to it.
Has just ruled that you must give CNN reporter Jim Acosta his press pass back. Your reaction to the ruling?
It's fine. I mean, it's not a big deal. What they said, though, is that we have to create rules and regulations for conduct, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing that. We're going to write them up right now. It's not a big deal. And if he misbehaves, we'll throw him out. Or we'll stop the news conference. Actually,
what are your rules going to be? What is it that you're saying?
They're doing them now.
This is over the line, and you lose your
they're
president.
doing them now. I mean, we'll have rules of decorum. You know, you can't keep asking questions. We had a lot of reporters in that room, many reporters in that room, and they were unable to ask questions because this guy gets up and starts, doing what he's supposed to be doing for him and for CNN, and just shouting out questions. But I will say this: look. Nobody believes in the First Amendment more than I do. And if I think somebody's acting out of sorts, I will leave. I'll say, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you coming, and I'll leave. And those reporters will not be too friendly to whoever it is that's acting up.
Why didn't you call on Acosta in the first place? I mean, it seems to me there's a simple solution here. Just don't call him.
Actually, I like to do it, but in many cases I don't. He'll stand up. He's unbelievably rude to Sarah Huckabee, who's a wonderful woman. Unbelievably rude. And I see that, and I actually ask her the same. Why do you call on these people that are so nasty? And I think one of the things we'll do is maybe turn the camera off that faces them, because then they don't have any airtime. Although I'll probably be sued for that, and maybe win or lose it. Who knows? I mean, with this stuff, you never know what's going to happen.
Let's get to the bigger issue. In 2017, last year, you tweeted this, and I want to quote it accurately: "The fake news media is not my enemy; it is the enemy of the American people."
It's true, 100%. Not the media. I'm glad you're finally quoting it correctly, because they like to leave the fake news.
Okay, but that's what you said.
Fake news. So the people that are supporting me in particular, they're very smart people. They're hardworking, brilliant, great people. They know when the news is fake. And they get angry when they see all of the fakeness. Frankly, the networks.
There have been people who've been critical of other presidents. No president has liked his press coverage. John Kennedy, in your Oval Office, canceled the subscription to the New York Herald Tribune. Nobody called it the enemy of the American people.
Chris, I'm calling the fake news is the enemy. It's fake. It's phony.
But a lot of times there is just news you don't like.
No, it's not. No. I don't mind getting bad news if I'm wrong. If I do something wrong, like, for instance, the cemetery. I was not allowed to go because of the Secret Service, because they expected to take a helicopter.
Okay. Hey. And there we have it. More of Donald Trump. We would love to hear your thoughts. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. It gets very heated. And does the president have a point? See, I believe that he does. I believe that the president actually is correct in this. And Chris Wallace and he go at it back and forth. Why don't we do this? Let's reload, and we'll hear the end of it, and then we'll get your phone calls on this. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, quickly to security guard Mike, then back to the President Trump, Chris Wallace tape. Good morning, security guard Mike.
Hey there, Kevin Miller. Awesome job last week with Miller's Mission and getting all those turkeys for all the people in the Idaho. And to all your fans, you're awesome fans. You're awesome people.
Well, it was great to see you.
What's that?
It was great to see you.
Oh, yeah, and I just wanted to say on that Chris Wallace situation, that was not a good interview. I think that you do not talk over the president. You ask the question, let him finish their thought. That's why I think that last caller that said that Kevin Miller would be a good interviewer, I think you would. I think you'd ask him tough, hard questions and not let him off the hook, but you would also let him finish his thoughts and be respectful of the guy. That's just the kind of guy you are, and that's the kind of show you have. That's the kind of show you run. And let's get President Trump here so you can interview him.
Well, thank you.
Have a great Kevin Miller, and I love you.
Love you, security guard Mike. We appreciate it. Now, quickly, we're running out of time, but let's get back to the president and Chris Wallace.
They said, sir, we are totally unequipped for you to go. In addition to that, the cemetery was far too far away from Air Force One, which is sort of like a control center where you had to be near. Not one paper that I saw wrote it that way. They said I stayed out of it because of the rain. And yet, the following day, I made a speech at the American Cemetery. It was pouring. It wasn't even really raining the first day, but the fog was tremendous, okay?
But, sir, leaders in authoritarian countries like Russia, China, Venezuela now repress the media using your words.
I can't talk for other people. I can only talk for me. I will tell you.
But you're seen around the world as a beacon for repression, not for...
I'm not talking about you, but you sometimes maybe, but I'm not talking about you. The news about me is largely phony. It's false. Even sometimes they'll say, sources say. There is no source in many cases. In many cases there is.
I understand you don't like your coverage.
No.
Can I just bring the bigger...
94%
Can I bring the bigger issue up?
Yeah.
Bill McRaven, retired admiral, Navy SEAL, 37 years, former head of U.S. Special Operations.
Hillary Clinton fan.
Special Operations
Excuse me, Hillary Clinton fan.
Who led the operations, commanded the operations that took down Saddam Hussein and that killed Osama bin Laden, says that your sentiment is the greatest threat to democracy in his lifetime.
He's a Hillary Clinton backer and an Obama backer. And frankly,
he was a Navy SEAL.
Wouldn't it have been nice if we got Osama bin Laden a lot sooner than that? Wouldn't it have been nice? Think of this. Living in Pakistan, beautifully in Pakistan, in what I guess they considered a nice mansion. I don't know, I've seen nicer. But living in Pakistan, right next to the military academy, everybody in Pakistan knew he was there. And we give Pakistan $1.3 billion a year. And they don't tell him? They don't tell him?
You're not even going to give them credit for taking down bin Laden?
They took him down, but look. There's news right there. He lived in Pakistan. We're supporting Pakistan. We're giving them $1.3 billion a year, which we don't give them anymore, by the way. I ended it because they don't do anything for us. They don't do a damn thing for us. I'm totally in favor of the media. I'm totally in favor of free press. We've got to be fair press. When it's fake.
But the president get to decide what's fair and what's not.
I can tell what's fair and not. And so can my people and so can a lot of other people.
I understand that, but
when you do something very good and they write it badly, and this is consistently, when you, as an example, rarely do they talk about...
Barack Obama whined about Fox News all the time, but he never said we were the enemy of the people.
Well, no, he didn't talk about the news. He didn't talk about anything. I'm only saying it very differently than anyone's ever said it before. I'm saying fake news, false reporting, dishonest reporting, of which there is a lot, and I know it. See, I know it because I'm a subject of it. A lot of people don't know it, but when I explain it to them, they understand it. And Chris, you know that better than you don't have to sit here and act like a perfect little, wonderful, innocent angel. I know you too well. I knew your father too well. That's not your gene. But let me tell you,
I think some of the coverage of you, sir, and I've said it on the record, is biased. But I don't think that
most of it is biased.
I don't know, but the idea that you call us the enemy of the people.
I'm not calling you that.
I'm talking about we're all together.
You don't understand it.
We're all together.
No. I'm not calling you.
It doesn't matter whether you call. When you call CNN and the New York Times,
I am calling.
We're in solidarity, sir.
I am calling fake news, fake reporting is what's tearing this country apart. Because people like things that are happening, and they're not hearing about it.
Where do you rank yourself in the pantheon of great presidents? There's Lincoln and Washington, there's FDR and Reagan. Do you make the top 10?
I think I'm doing a great job. We have the best economy we've ever had.
So where do you rank yourself?
We're doing really well. We would have been in war with North Korea if, let's say, that administration continued forward. I would give myself, look, I hate to do it, but I will do it. I would give myself an A+. Is that enough?
There we have it, the magic of Donald Trump with Chris Wallace from Fox News Sunday. Remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio in the Treasure Valley, it's 107.5 FM, 580 AM, your official home for Fox News on the radio. We'll get your reaction. Coming up, Dave Petzo. You remember Dave Petzo, the Petzo Center, Petzo Financial, Money Matters. We caught up with him during Miller's Mission. We'll delve into the stocks, the markets, the money, the gas, all that more coming up. But first, let's find out what's happening, well, in your world, on your way into work. Good morning, Dave.